Welcome to Canada Studio. In this video we're talking about tubular versus clincher tires or wheel sets. We're gonna be talking about what's the difference between those two systems and what are the cons and pros for using either a tubular right hand side or the clincher left hand side. What's the difference between those two? For the people who don't know tubular, I'm gonna just start with the traditional clincher system. We do have a rim, we do have the inner tube, and we do have the tire. Same for tubular, we have the rim, inner tube and the tire, but the inner tube and the tire are just two different, completely different parts of the system. We put the inner tube inside the tire, then the tire, the bead of the tire will just press, we're pressing it into the rim. And the rim is hooked. I'm gonna show you that in a minute, and the bead of the tire will just press against the wall of the rim, and that's the system. That's the way the system locks up, and then we can inflate the inner tube, and our tire will get into the shape that we want to have, and also we will be able to regulate to adjust the tire pressure. That's how the rim looks like. It does have those two walls, right and left side, and the bead of the tire will just hold on to the wall. This is how it looks like for the clincher. The tubular now is different. As I said, we do have a rim, inner tube and the tire in the tubular, but a tubular system means that the tire is a closed tube actually, and in that tube we have a stitched inner tube around the tire. So the inner tube is inside the tire, and you cannot just take it off just as I'm doing it for the clincher. It's a closed system, and then the rim doesn't have those hooked walls. It only has a surface that we put a glue or the double-sided rim, and then we will glue the tire onto our rim. This is how the tubular system looks like. Tubular does not mean tubeless, it's completely different topic. Tubeless means not having the inner tube. So that's other system that we are using both for mountain bikes and road bikes. That would be only the tire that will it will be sealed against the rim without any inner tube. So tubular is not same as tubeless. What are the differences in use between those two? It's quite easy to say who should not be thinking about buying tubular wheels. And that would be people who are using only one pair of wheels. Do not buy tubular. If you're on the budget, you would rather choose the clinchers. And also, if you don't have for your races and trainings some car that would follow you with spare wheels, I would rather recommend to buy clinchers. And why? I'm gonna be talking about it now in a few more comments. The differences. The differences now are getting different, or not that huge, because the clincher system is also improving a lot. But in general, we can say that the tubular system usually is lighter than the clincher. Usually, we can also say that tubular system on our right hand side has a smaller, lower rolling resistance than the clincher. Usually, I must repeat, the tubular system will be usually a little bit more resistant to the punctures, so especially pinch punctures than a clincher. Tubular system will almost always be much more expensive than a high quality clincher. The tubular system will be always more expensive in terms of the maintenance than a clincher, and this one will be also more difficult to replace the tire with the inner tube, of course, somewhere in the middle of nowhere than the Clincher. So looks like the Tubular has many disadvantages, and I have to say it's right, it is just like that. Why do a professional cyclist choose Tubulars over the Clinchers? Because they can afford them. They have a car with the spare wheels, so they do not have to think about replacing the tubular system just by gluing another tire to your rim just during the race. So that's not the issue for them. And still many riders would say that they feel they go faster on a tubular system. One of the main differences I haven't mentioned yet is also that we can put much more pressure into the tubular system. When we just look at the sidewall of our 2.4, we can see that we inflate these from 8 to 12 bar or 115 to 175 psi's versus our Schwalbe Ultremo that we can inflate much less, which will be from 6 to 10 bars. Exactly 6 to 10 bars or 85 to 145 psi. 85 to 145, here we have up to 175, but beginning with 115, so that's a huge difference. That's why we can feel on the very good roads, on the very good surfaces, that this one will have a lower rolling resistance. But then we are now getting more and more experience and knowledge about Clinchers, and quite a few riders now would prefer to have rather wider, a little bit wider tires with a bit lower air pressure, because then the rolling resistance on some maybe a little bit more rough roads will be actually lower. So it is very important also to ask yourself a question: what are the kind of the roads I'm going to be training or racing on when you are trying to choose between tubulars and between tubulars and the Clinchers. As we know, the tubular will be just glued to the rim. That's why the rim doesn't have those hooked walls. That means also that the tire is not pressing against the walls of the rim, so there is no tension here. But for our Clinchers, there is a lot of tension. And remember that the walls that our tire is trying to push aside are also the surface, our braking surface. And when it's being used quite a lot, it can just blow off. Of course, it's for extremes when you're really wearing down your braking surface, but it can happen. I can also show you the Clincher system for the MTB. As you can see here, this is the rim with those walls for the Clincher tire, but here you can see it's cracked. It's completely cracked, and it didn't crack just because I hit some obstacle. It's cracking because the high pressure of the tire is pushing those two walls aside, and usually somewhere around the hole, this is a hole for a valve, the rim can just crack after, of course, after many rides or some years of use. But this can happen around the valve holes, or if you got them, this is a UST rim. If you've got also the holes for the nipples, it can happen there. So there is tension between the tire and the rim. On the Clinchers, there is no tension, no such tension on the tubular system. Which one I'm gonna choose? Well, I would love to have this high quality Easton EC90 wheels, so I will be trying to get such wheels for my bike, but only for races. But when I'm going to be training, I will always take my clinchers with me, and I will always take just the inner tube, the spare inner tube, in case of a puncture. Very easy to fix. As I said, the clinchers will be a bit less puncture resistant than a tubular, but still very easy and very cheap also to fix if the puncture happens. I guess that's pretty much all I wanted to tell you in this video. If you have any experience with both system, tubular and clinchers, let us all know in the comments, so we will also be able to use your experience in our training and racing. Thank you very much for watching my videos. Stay tuned for more and more this year, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.